in times of trouble. Traditionally, the monks are supposed to study Pali, the ancient language in India, in which the Buddha taught, the Dhamma or the doctrines, Vinaya, the disciplines, and practice meditation. But today, they are expected to do some social work as well. In 2003, UNICEF and UNAID stated that since religious leaders are so respected in their community, they serve as effective resource persons because of their credibility and trustworthiness. This means they held the unique positions of being able to alter the course of the epidemic because they can shape social values, promote responsible behavior, support policies and laws, increase public knowledge, influence opinions, redirect resources, raise funds, etc. An excellent example actually has been done in Thailand, what is called the Sangha Metta Project. It is started by Mr. M, an Australian who has been a monk for 30 years. In fact, much of what I'm presenting today are taken from the Sangha Metta Project. I'm quoting here a prominent religious leader, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, whereby which in a meeting in San Francisco 1997, he categorizes the AIDS victims into two, one which contracted the disease through their own hazardous behavior, another the passive victims. However, Buddhists will make no value judgment about such behavior, as Buddhic ethics call for each person to develop his or her own sense of responsibilities. From Buddhist point of view, one of the basic facts of suffering of existence is that AIDS is the tragedy of existence, and Buddhism in a practical spiritual way is concerned about the fate of human beings, therefore focusing attention on the people who are ill. We should remember that the people who have HIV or who are sick with AIDS are actually simply people, ordinary human beings with a disease, or people, humans who are ill. As humans, of course, they are entitled to what is stated in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 25, Paragraph 1, where everyone has the right to a standard of living adequate for the health and well-being of himself and of his family, including medical care and necessary social services, and the right to security in the event of sickness. And this is, of course, in line with the teachings of the Buddha. As we know, HIV-AIDS is no longer a regional issue. It even goes beyond a country. Therefore, I think it would be unreasonable to expect the government to work alone at solving a problem this huge. So what are the so-called responsibilities? At the time of the Buddha had made it the duty of both the secular and ordained members of the community to help those who are ill or dying. Instead of just chanting 5 precepts to people, monks and religious leaders need to emphasize adherence to the 5 precepts, just as medical doctors emphasize their patients to adhere to ARV. But we have to remember that people are the key agents of change. This means that they have to take their own responsibility for their own health. However, in order for them to do this, they need to understand the causes of the disease, its origin and treatment. And in order for them to cooperate this treatment regime or certain lifestyle into theirs, the people have to know its purpose and its value. What is also important is that they have to know that they have a say in their lifestyle. Otherwise, they will feel imposed upon and they will resist the change. I've talked about adherence to the 5 precepts. So what are they? These are actually the moral conducts observed by lay Buddhists. The first is to refrain from harming living beings. This includes harming oneself, being involved in risky behavior that might increase the likelihood of being infected and eventually leads to death. The second is to refrain from taking that which is not given. The third, refrain from sexual misconduct. The fourth, refrain from wrong or false speech. The fifth, refrain from consuming intoxicants, which leads to heedlessness. I shall now look into the core teaching of the Buddha, which is the 4 Noble Truths. The first is suffering or dukkha. The second, cause or origins of suffering, samudaya. The third is the cessation of suffering, nirodha. The fourth is the path leading to the cessation of suffering, magga, which is the Noble Eightfold Path, also known as the Middle Way. And we can see that AIDS is suffering, and there is a cause of suffering for AIDS. There of course also exists the cessation of suffering for AIDS, and the path leading to the cessation of AIDS. In terms of AIDS, what is suffering? From the time a person finds out that he or she is infected with HIV, the suffering begins. And the suffering does not stop with the individual. It extends to the family as well as the community. For every person infected with HIV, at least half a dozen more is directly affected. The parents, spouses, children, and the impact is even more serious if the ones infected are the parents or the spouse, because this not only means that they will lose their loved ones, but probably that they're going to lose their source of family income. The community also suffers because they lose their workforce, and younger generation will grow up insecure and uneducated. The nation also suffers, of course, through the loss of workforce, productivity, resulting in the loss of income and a deficit in the national budget, as well as the weakened security and defenses. In the long run, the nation may not be able to afford to finance treatment for people who cannot be cured. And the suffering will increase over time because their life changes, the society changes, and many, many adjustments have to be made. So, being infected with HIV is suffering. Being discriminated against is suffering. Loss of income through the lack of employment is suffering. Schools closing doors to child victims is suffering. Falling ill and dying of AIDS is suffering. And what is the cause of suffering for AIDS? Ignorance. Ignorance is the root cause for the suffering of AIDS. Ignorance on how to live with HIV or AIDS has resulted in the rapid and unnecessary decline for health in many, many victims. And ignorance on HIV and AIDS itself has led to stigmatization and discrimination. And of course, if there is suffering for AIDS, there are also the opposite, which is the non-suffering of AIDS. This is when the victims can live in harmony with the community because they are accepted. And of course, the way to end the suffering is by eliminating its cause, ignorance, through the Noble Eightfold Path. This is the middle way. The first is right understanding, the second right thought, the third right speech, the fourth right action, the fifth right livelihood, the sixth right effort, the seventh right mindfulness, the eighth right concentration. Right understanding about HIV and AIDS will correct any misconception, superstitions, and false belief. Thus people will not get infected, fall ill, or die. It will even prevent prejudiced attitudes and discriminatory behavior. Right thought helps to prevent risky behavior and overcome prejudice as well as discrimination in the community. Thus the victims will be able to live happier because they are accepted. These first two of the Noble Path make up what is called panya, or wisdom. The third is right speech. This means that there will be no malicious gossips or harmful talk about the victims. Children will not be teased, and victims will not lie or speak falsely about their condition or their behavior. And what is considered right action? The first is to perform wholesome acts that will not lead to risky behavior. The second, abstaining from behavior that will put one at risk of being infected. And the third, giving supportive behavior towards the victims. And the fifth right livelihood means avoiding certain professions that will put one at a greater risk of contracting the disease. Right effort here means applying effort in controlling personal behavior, victims learning more about their condition and taking care of their own personal health, also saying no and not giving in to peer pressure to engage in risky behavior, and developing understanding and overcoming prejudiced attitudes. The third through the sixth Noble Path make up what is called sila, or the precepts. Right mindfulness should be practiced at all times because when a person is not mindful, he can be easily led into performing unwholesome acts that could result in infection with HIV. Right concentration is good for maintaining equanimity and calm and also very conducive to good health. Without concentration, a person becomes easily distracted, forgets what is wholesome and what is unwholesome, thus is prone to perform acts that could lead to infection with HIV. The seventh and the eighth Noble Path make up what is called samadhi and usually is practiced through meditation. The Buddha also taught that everybody should use the four sublime states, the Brahma Vihara, to dictate their behavior so that society could be peaceful and happy. The first is loving kindness or metta. This means being sincere, wishing others well, giving encouragement to victims to help them feel better both physically or emotionally so that they can live their lives as part of the society. The second is compassion or karuna. This means being understanding and considerate. We cannot overlook that some of the victims of HIV and AIDS, they are very, very poor and out of work, but at the same time, they still need to look after their families. We know that in this present economic situation, it's even hard for those people who are not sick to make ends meet. So I think we should spare a thought for those less fortunate than us. The third is sympathetic joy or mudita. This means that we rejoice in other people's good fortune. We will feel happy when we see them well and when we see that they are able to work. The fourth is equanimity or upeka. This is being fair, impartial, and not being biased to the victims. For example, we should think things very, very carefully before we form an opinion about the AIDS victim or about anything that we hear about HIV or AIDS. Well, if you notice, the colors of my slide presentation is actually the colors of a Buddhist flag proposed by J.R. De Silva and Colonel Henry S. Olcott in Ceylon, 1952. The blue stands for devotion or bhakti. We should actually make our youth understand that they have to repay their parents by avoiding drugs or other high-risk behavior. I'm quoting another prominent religious figure, Master Cheng Yen of the Searchy, who said that people do not own their life, they just have the right to use it. The yellow stands for wisdom, panya, which actually is the first and the second noble path that I've talked about previously. The third is red, symbolizes loving kindness metta, one of the four sublime states that I've mentioned before, which tells us to share, be generous, help one another, and this is especially needed when caring for people living with HIV and AIDS. The fourth, white, represents purity. In other words, we should perform every kind of wholesome deed with pure intention. This orange represents virya, or being energetic or full of spirit in whatever wholesome deed we do. To conclude today's presentation, I sincerely hope that will be beneficial of a Buddhist perspective of HIV prevention. I thank you all for your time and attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Effie Luciana. Your presentation is very informative and very, inspirative for us. Okay, all participants in all sides, now we come to the session of discussion. Before we come to the discussion, I want to inform you that all the presentations, all the materials can be seen and downloaded from our homepage www.clr.ui.ac.id. For technical reasons, this morning we cannot broadcast the material from Sister Torres, but you can see and download from that homepage. Okay, now let's come to the discussion session. For the first round, I will invite participants from Diponegoro University, Erlangga University, and Hasanuddin. Now from Diponegoro University?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yes, clearly. So you can deliver your question. And then please mention to whom your question is.
Yes, thank you. We are from Diponegoro University. I have a question goes to Dr. Toha Muhaimin and Sister Amelia Torres. Yes. So basically, I do believe that all the religions in this world will teach us a good thing. And in a matter of HIV/AIDS prevention and control, I also believe that every religion will based on the statement of helping each other or helping others' lives. Yeah, I do believe that Islamic or Catholic or Buddhist also have the same perspective. However, I do have one question regarding to promoting the condom use. Yeah, especially to sex worker or those who have risky behavior. In the case, Sister Amelia Torres said that all the relationships between men and women should occur within marriage, as well as in Islamic. But then how this perception can contrast to promoting condom use? Thank you very much.
Questions about the controversy of using condom as preventive measures in HIV and AIDS control. Now we come to the other sides first before we ask all the resource persons to answer the questions. I invite the participants from University of Erlangga. Is there any questions from Erlangga University?
Yeah, I want to ask a question.
Okay. Yes, please, you can deliver a question.
In terms of prevention of HIV spread, we completely agree that we can use religion quotation as warning for the people to avoid any risky behavior such as promiscuity, drug abuse, and so on. But we think that it means legitimating the stigma of HIV, especially among the active victims. So, how we can discuss between the religion teaching and the stigma? Because in ourselves, avoiding stigma means we can do any activities prohibited by religion as long as we do it safely. Okay, thank you.
Okay. There is no question from Makassar. Okay, for the first chance, I invite Sister Torres from the Philippines. You have questions. First is about the controversy of using condom for preventing HIV and AIDS, and also issues of legitimating the problems of HIV and AIDS. Okay, please, Sister Torres.
Yes, I would want to quote what the pastoral letter of the Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines in the use of condom, and in its moral dimension of the problem. This HIV and AIDS, urges us to take a sharply negative view of the condom distribution approach to the problem. And I quote what the bishop said: "We believe that this approach is simplistic and evasive. It leads to a false sense of complacency on the part of the state, creating an impression that an adequate solution has been arrived at. On the contrary, it simply evades and neglects the heart of the solution, namely the formation of authentic sexual values. We, the Daughters of Charity, we do not say yes, we do not say no to the use of condoms. We insist and we reiterate that it should be the responsibility of the partners, taking into consideration that they have to uphold the integrity, fidelity, responsibility in their relationship. So that we again say in the end of it all that when one lives by faith and one that follows what our Lord Jesus Christ tells us to do, we stick to chastity and to the refusal to engage in extramarital sexual activity, which is the best protection against HIV and AIDS. So as we have said a while ago in our presentation, it's still the fidelity, the mutual respect of each partner that will give them the decision on what to do in their sexual relationship. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sister Torres. Now I invite Dr. Toha Muhaimin to answer the questions.
Okay, thank you. Talking about the condom controversies, I think will never end. I have an experience that I presented a lot of scholar or religious leaders meeting which come with declaration or commitment, and all the time, and when they have meeting, condom is always hot issues to be discussed. In my opinion, promoting condom is maybe it is very important in certain segment of people, certain group of people. If you are activist to the, say, for the commercial sex worker, you should promote condom. If you are activist to campaign on the, in quotation, long distance truck driver or sailor, which is generally they are very high risk to get infected, you should I think promote condom. But for the general people, I think promoting condom is still debatable. I have several activities on preventing people from AIDS, for youth, for common people, but we never campaign that. But we let them know that the only prevention, physical prevention to the sexual activities is only condom. There is no other mean. If somebody has sexual activities, condom is the only one to protect the infection. So, for instance, if I ask to the participant of the religious leader training, if I said, what do you think about one couple that one is infected, and what is the solution for you if they ask you to solve that? And the imam said, you use condom. We never insist them to campaign that, but they know that. That is my opinion. Second question about legitimating the, for instance, risky behavior. It's very hard to answer maybe. I think in the Islamic teaching that, and also as a doctor, we should care and help to the people who are sick, regardless the background. We never ask what is your behavior, what is your religion. What they need is actually helping the disease. So in this kind, we should avoid relating background of the people. If you have, for instance, the big criminals in your city, and you meet them hit by car, and you can save them by doing something, I think it is a must to do that without thinking about he is a big criminal. You have to save him. This is, I think, and it doesn't mean that you are legitimizing the criminal action. I think this is my analogy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Toha. Very what interesting questions. If there is still more questions about this, you can upload your question to the our website, and then later on we will deliver the questions to all of our resource person. Now let's come to the second round. Let me invite the participants from Kuala Lumpur. Is there any questions for the three resource persons here?
Yes, thank you for the lecture. I would like to know the opinion of the three panels on the practice of abortion of an unplanned pregnancy by a female who is already HIV infected. Hello? I can't
Okay, we can hear you. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, only one question. Okay. Let me invite a question maybe from University of Gajah Mada. Any question from Gajah Mada? No question? Okay, let's go to Bali, to Udayana. Do you have any question? Participants from Udayana?
We don't have any question right now.
Okay. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Effie to first answer the question about the opinion on induced abortion for women with HIV. Yes, you can. Yes, you please. Induced abortion.
Okay, thank you. I would just like to point out that in Buddhism, it's breaking the first precept, which is to refrain from harming a living being. But again, this case is from the woman, so she knows what her precepts is, and if she wants to keep her precepts, then she's not going to do the abortion. But again, the Buddhist ethics call for everyone to be responsible of her or his own behavior, so we leave it up to her. She knows that if she does the abortion, she will break the first precept.
Very clear answer. Now, Dr. Toha Muhammad, your answer?
Yeah, to me, to have induced abortion for the woman positive is, I think it doesn't, I don't agree with that. It's not even for the HIV positive woman, but even for the unpregnant, not negative HIV woman. So I don't think it is a good way, because, but in Islam, I think abortion is debatable. A lot of a lot of opinion from the religious leader, because when we say abortion, when do we start the life? That is the point. Starting when the life starts, it is debatable when. So some people say that before 40 days is okay, and before 120 days. So it depends on the opinion of them. But in my opinion, abortion is not the way to do that. In HIV positive women, the proportion of or the probability to have positive baby from the pregnant woman is very low actually, mostly after the taking ARV, sexual cesarean, and then not giving breast milk. So even without any means, any intervention, the probability is 25 to 40. So it is very small. That's my question, my answer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Toha. The last response, I will invite Sister Torres to answer this question about induced abortion for women with HIV positive.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. The Church desires to affirm without qualification the value of every human life, and she is called to defend it. So every Christian's ultimate responsibility is to protect life and more specifically to protect against HIV transmission, especially among those who have the least capacity to defend themselves. And these are the child in the womb of the mother. So with this particular statement, I would still uphold that human life is to be defended. And if ever an HIV-positive pregnant woman is to deliver or is to keep her baby up to the time of delivery, she has other means to do, like she can take the ARV treatment while having the pregnancy on, and just as what the doctor said a while ago, she can deliver by cesarean. And here in our country, in the very congregation where we have the institutional care for children of those HIV-positive parents, so that when they are still in the process of keeping their pregnancy, they are helped by this institution up to the time they get into the actual delivery, and even up to the time that they care for the baby that has been delivered. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Torres. Dear participants, especially participants from Salemba and Depok, I should say sorry because I cannot invite your questions, but you in both sides have the opportunity to have the online discussion after this offline discussion after this online broadcasting. I'm so sorry not to invite some questions from Salemba and Depok. Okay, all participants, today we have learned very valuable things and message from three religions, from Islam, Catholic, and Buddha. All religions already, resource persons already delivered the main message, the principles of those religions, how to prevent HIV and AIDS. If you still have more questions about this religious perspective, you can upload your questions to our homepage, and then later on we will deliver the questions to all the resource persons. Sister Torres from Philippines, Dr. Toha and Dr. Effie from Indonesia. At the end, I would like to thank Sister Torres. Thank you very much for your time, for your valuable information. Also for Dr. Effie, Mr. Untung and Dr. Toha for your time and your contribution to these sessions. So if there is more questions from the participants, we will deliver to you and ask your assistant to answer the questions. Okay, I will close this session. Thank you very much for your attention. Please give an applause to all the resource persons for these sessions. We will have a short break to prepare the next session. We will have Pak Ishar at Salemba, and hopefully Ibu Naf is already there also. We will have a short break. Banyak sekali pelajaran dari situ. Bapak, thank you. Jelas sekali jawabannya. Just a portion, no.
Dian.
Iya, Pak.
Itu narasumbernya sudah di situ.
Udah, Pak.
Udah.
Iya, Pak.
Kalau ada kan Nanti diganti-gantian aja slide-nya, terus ke pembicaranya slide pembicara gitu aja.
Ini studionya khusus juga?
Enggak, bukan studio, meja di depan. Enggak, emang ada meja di depan. Iya, dia. Iya, berhadapan dengan mahasiswa. Nutupin. Nah, di situ aja. Nah, ya.
Halo, tes. Suara kedengaran?
Iya, kedengaran Bu. Terima kasih Bu. Kita coba pilih satu.
Oh.
Okay, we're ready for the second session today.
Okay, stand by.
Tapi kenapa gaung ya?
You ada feedback, Mat? Okay, I will check. We'll all decide first. Erlangga, are you still with us? University of Erlangga? University of Diponegoro?
We are with you, sir.
Okay. University of Diponegoro, are you still with us? Hello?
Yes, can you hear us?
Yeah, we can hear loud and clear. University of Udayana, are you here with us? Hello, University of Udayana? Hello? Okay, we move to University of Gajah Mada, Yogyakarta. Are you still with us? Gajah Mada, are you still with us? Okay, Monash University in Malaysia? Hello, Monash? Okay. The Philippines? Preganet, are you still with us? Hello, Philippines?
Yeah, but we don't have any participants. Sister Torres has already left.
So are you going to close the sites, or are you going to participate in the sessions?
I think we will close the site.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, you Depok, still with us?